ruining this. Whatever this is. I moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city below. I've never been in a situation like this before. What kind of situation? Where I care about someone who could destroy me without even trying. I felt him move behind me, felt the warmth of his presence before he spoke. You think I could destroy you? I know you could. I turned to face him. The question is whether you would. Something painful flickered across his features. I've destroyed everything good that's ever come into my life, Jake. It's what I do. What I'm trained for. By who? My father. The business world. Life. He moved to the bar, pouring himself a whiskey with hands that weren't quite steady. I learned early that emotions are liabilities. That caring about people gives them power to hurt you. And now I'm standing here caring about you more than I've ever cared about anything, and I have no idea how to do this without breaking it. The vulnerability in his voice made my chest tight. I crossed to him, gently taking the glass from his hands and setting it aside. Maybe that's the point, I said. Maybe we're both so used to expecting the worst that we've forgotten how to hope for the best. What if hope isn't enough? Then we figure out what is. I reached up and finished loosening his tie, sliding it from around his neck. His breath caught, and I could see the pulse jumping in his throat. Jake, I'm not going anywhere, Aiden. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Whatever this becomes, we face it together. His hands came up to frame my face, thumbs brushing across my cheekbones. I don't know how to be gentle with things I want to keep. Then learn with me. The kiss this time was different, slower, deeper, filled with promise instead of desperation. His hands tangled in my hair, and I could taste the whiskey on his lips, could feel the rapid beat of his heart against my chest. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Stay with me tonight, he whispered against my lips. Just to sleep. Just to sleep. I don't want to be alone. The admission was quietly devastating. I thought about all the nights I'd heard him playing piano in the dark, all the careful distance he maintained even when we were in the same room. How long had it been since he'd asked someone to stay? Okay. Relief flooded his features. Okay. Later, lying in his bed fully clothed, watching the city lights play across the ceiling, I felt him relax beside me for the first time since I'd known him. His breathing deepened, became regular, and I realized he'd fallen asleep. But I stayed awake, memorizing the feel of his warmth beside me, the sound of his quiet breathing, the way his hand had found mine in the darkness and held on like I was his anchor in an uncertain world. Whatever we were building together, it felt fragile and precious and terrifying. But for the first time in longer than I could remember, I wasn't afraid of the morning. I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Aiden moving quietly around the bedroom. He was already dressed for work, but when he noticed I was awake, he brought me a steaming mug. "Good morning," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Good morning." I accepted the coffee gratefully, noting how he seemed more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. "Sleep well?" "Better than I have in years." He hesitated, then reached out to brush a strand of hair from my forehead. "About last night? Are you having second thoughts?" "No, but I want to make sure you're not." I set the coffee aside and reached for his hand. "I'm terrified, but I'm not having second thoughts. Are we really doing this?" "Apparently we are." A smile tugged at his lips. "Though I should warn you, I have no idea what I'm doing." "Join the club." He laughed, a sound I was beginning to treasure. "I have meetings all day, but I'll be home for dinner. Would you like to cook together?" The domesticity of the suggestion caught me off guard. "You cook?" "I make a mean pasta primavera. It's about the only dish I've mastered." I'd like that. He leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to my lips, casual and natural, as if we'd been doing this for years instead of hours. I'll see you tonight. After he left, I found myself wandering the penthouse with new eyes. The space felt different now. Less like a museum and more like a home. I spent the day reading, exploring the extensive library I'd barely noticed before, and trying to process the seismic shift in our relationship. But it wasn't until I opened the piano bench that I truly understood what last night had meant. Inside were stacks of sheet music, all handwritten in Aiden's precise script. The pieces had titles like Solitude, Empty Rooms, and Winter's End. But at the bottom of the stack was something that made my breath catch. A piece titled Jake's Song, dated just 3 days ago. The melody line was complex but beautiful, full of the longing I'd heard in his midnight playing, but with something new woven through it. Hope. At the bottom of the page, in his careful handwriting, was a single line. For the man who taught me that walls can be bridges instead of barriers. I was still staring at the sheet music when he came home that evening, carrying grocery bags and wearing an expression of nervous anticipation. "You're early," I said, setting the music aside. "I may have left a meeting early." He set the bags on the kitchen counter, then noticed what I was holding. His entire body went still. "You found those. You wrote me a song." He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking vulnerable. "I compose when I'm trying to work through complicated emotions. I didn't mean for you to see that. It's beautiful. You can't read music." "No, but I can see your heart in every note." I moved closer, still holding the sheet music. "When did you know?" "Know what? That this was real for you." He was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. "The first night you heard me playing, you didn't interrupt or make it about you. You just listened. No one had ever just listened before." "And when did you know you were in trouble?" A rueful smile crossed his features. "When I started composing love songs for the first time in my life, I set the music aside and moved into his arms, feeling like I was exactly where I belonged. I love you too, you know." He went very still. "You do?" "Terrifyingly much." His arms tightened around me, and I felt him bury his face in my neck. "This is really happening. It's really happening. I don't want to mess this up." "Then don't." He pulled back to look at me, and I saw wonder in his eyes, as if he couldn't quite believe his luck. "How did I get so fortunate?" "Same way I did. We stopped pretending we didn't need saving and started saving each other instead." 3 weeks later, we were summoned to Sunday dinner at Eleanor's estate. The invitation had come with a knowing smile and a request that we bring our appetites for both food and conversation. "She's up to something," Aiden said as we drove through the tree-lined drive leading to his grandmother's Georgian mansion. "When isn't she?" "Fair point." He reached over and squeezed my hand. "Just remember, whatever she says, we present a united front." Eleanor greeted us at the door wearing pearls, an expression of barely contained delight. "My darlings, you both look positively radiant." Dinner was a masterpiece of Southern hospitality. Crystal glasses, fine china, and enough food to feed a small army. But it was the conversation that proved most illuminating. "So," Eleanor said over the main course, "how long are you planning to keep up this charade?" Aiden nearly choked on his wine. "Excuse me?" "Oh, please. I've been navigating social politics longer than you've been alive. I could tell from the first dinner that your arrangement was purely business." She turned to me with twinkling eyes. Though I suspect that's changed recently. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "Mrs. Carter." "Eleanor, please. And don't look so panicked. I'm not here to scold you." She set down her fork and studied us both. "I'm here to tell you that I approve." "Of what exactly?" Aiden asked carefully. "Of the fact that you finally found someone who sees past your money to the man underneath. Of the fact that Jake looks at you like you hung the moon, and you look at him like he might actually be worth changing for." Her voice softened. "Of the love that's so obvious between you that even my ancient heart feels hopeful again." The word love hung in the air like a benediction. Aiden's hand found mine under the table. "There's something else," Eleanor continued. "Something I think you both should know." She rose and disappeared into another room, returning with a leather portfolio. From it, she extracted a photograph that she placed in front of us. It showed a young man who looked startlingly like Aiden, standing next to another man in what was clearly a romantic pose. Both were smiling with the kind of joy that seemed to radiate off the page. "That's your grandfather," Eleanor said to Aiden. "And the love of his life, Thomas." Aiden stared at the photograph, his face going through a series of complex emotions. "But you were married to him." "I was. For appearances, for family expectations, for all the reasons people make marriages that aren't built on romantic love." Eleanor's voice was gentle but firm. "But James and Thomas were together for 30 years. I was their friend, their cover story, and eventually their family." "You knew? All this time, you knew he was gay?" "Darling boy, I helped him hide it. Different times, different rules. But their love was real, and it was beautiful. And it taught me that the heart wants what it wants regardless of what society expects." I felt Aiden's hand tighten in mine, saw the way he was staring at the photograph like it held answers to questions he'd never known how to ask. "Why are you telling us this now?" he asked. "Because I see the same love in your eyes that I saw in theirs. Because I want you to know that you come from a long line of people who chose love over convention. And because..." She smiled at both of us. "Because I want you to know that when you're ready to make this official, you'll have family who supports you completely." The rest of the evening passed in a haze of revelations and quiet conversation. Eleanor shared stories about James and Thomas, about the community of friends who became family, about love that persisted despite obstacles and social pressure. As we drove home, Aiden was unusually quiet. "Are you okay?" I asked. My whole life, I thought I was disappointing him. My father always made it seem like I wasn't living up to the family legacy, wasn't being the man my grandfather would have wanted me to be. And now I realize I'm exactly who I was meant to be. He glanced at me, eyes bright with unshed tears. "And maybe that's enough. It's more than enough. It's everything." That night, he played the piano until dawn. Not the melancholy pieces I'd grown accustomed to, but something bright and hopeful that sounded like a celebration. When I found him at the bench as the sun rose over the city, he pulled me down beside him. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For helping me find my way home." The revelation about his grandfather changed something fundamental in Aiden. The walls he'd built around his heart began to crumble in earnest. But with vulnerability came growing pains that neither of us was prepared for. It started small. A forgotten anniversary dinner, a business trip extended without warning, moments where he retreated into the safety of work rather than face the intimacy we were building. I told myself it was natural, that learning to love someone required practice. But 3 months after that dinner with Eleanor, everything came to a head. "We need to talk," Aiden said when he came home at nearly midnight, finding me reading in bed. The words every relationship dreads. I set my book aside, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way he couldn't quite meet my eyes. "Okay." He sat on the edge of the bed, still in his suit, still maintaining distance even in our most intimate space. I've been offered an opportunity, a major acquisition in London. It would mean relocating for at least 6 months, possibly longer. My heart sank, but I tried to keep my voice level. That sounds like a big opportunity. It is. He finally looked at me, and I saw something like pain in his eyes. I want you to come with me. To London, as more than just my companion, as my partner. Officially. The words should have filled me with joy. Instead, they triggered every insecurity I'd been suppressing. Because it's convenient for your image? Because I can't imagine being there without you. His voice was raw. Because somewhere along the way, this stopped being about contracts and started being about forever. Forever? The word came out as barely a whisper. I love you, Jake. Not the version of you that fits into my world, not the idea of you, but you, your terrible taste in coffee, the way you hum when you're reading, how you see the best in people even when they don't deserve it. He reached for my hand. I want to build a life with you. A real one. It was everything I'd dreamed of hearing. So why did it feel like the ground was shifting beneath me? What about the contract? The arrangement? Void. Meaningless. I don't want you here because you owe me anything. I want you here because you choose to be. And if I say no to London? Something flickered across his features. Hurt, maybe, or fear. Then I don't go. You'd give up a major business opportunity? I'd give up anything for you. The intensity of his declaration should have reassured me. Instead, it terrified me. That's not love, Aiden. That's obsession. He recoiled as if I'd slapped him. What are you saying? I'm saying that you've spent your whole life controlling everything around you, and now you want to control this too. Us. That's not. He stood abruptly, running his hands through his hair. You think I'm trying to control you? I think you're scared of losing something else, so you're trying to lock it down before it can leave. The words tumbled out, fueled by months of suppressed anxiety. But you can't build a relationship on fear, and you can't build one on running away every time things get serious. The accusation stung because it held a grain of truth. I'm not running away. Aren't you? The moment I mention commitment, mention a future, you start looking for exits. Because I know how this ends. The words exploded out of me. Rich guy gets bored with his charity case and moves on to the next adventure. I've seen this movie, Aiden. Is that really what you think of me? After everything? The pain in his voice made my chest ache, but I couldn't stop myself. I think you're a good man who's used to getting what he wants. And I think eventually, you'll realize that what you want isn't me. You're wrong. Am I? How many other companions have there been? How many other contracts? His face went white. There have never been any other contracts. You were the first and only. And if you can't see the difference between what we have and a business arrangement, then maybe I've been fooling myself about this whole thing. The silence that followed was deafening. We stared at each other across the space that suddenly felt like a chasm, both breathing hard, both bleeding from wounds we'd inflicted on each other. Maybe you have been, I said quietly. Something died in his eyes. I see. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I meant every word. About London, about forever, about loving you more than I knew was possible. But you're right about one thing. I can't build a relationship on fear. Yours or mine. After he left, I sat alone in the bedroom we'd shared, surrounded by the life we'd built together, and wondered if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life.